Many people with OCD have irrational worries about AIDS, and I was concerned this would become a problem when Gary reported that a new coworker of his is HIV positive.
Because we were welcoming this new member of the team, and so we all got on this bus and went to the Olive Garden, and we all sat down around this big table in like the conference room, and the new guy got up and introduced himself and said what he had been doing recently, and then he started babbling on about like AIDS activism and AIDS. I mean, I don't know. It was pretty confusing and seemed really out of place. But then after we got our drinks, like he really conspicuously like took out a big handful of pills and like took it down with his iced tea. Okay. I mean, at that point it became pretty apparent to me and everyone else that this guy did indeed have AIDS.
Yeah.
And at this point everyone else sort of started acting really weird towards him. They didn't want to share any of their food with him. He ended up with like an entire thing of breadsticks to himself, which is unheard of at the Olive Garden. And I didn't want him to feel that bad about himself. I mean, people like were turning away when he tried to talk to them and were like covering their mouths. I mean, it was really preposterous. And so, he was telling jokes and he was trying to like, fit in, and I started laughing at things he would say, and every time I'd like give him a big high five, but I was actually giving me a high five because this guy Bob, who's sitting next to me, who I shared a cubicle with last year, who wears this horrible musk that he's contaminated. I can't deal with him on any level, and okay. He was equally disgusted as everyone else with this AIDS guy, and so he was like really, I guess impressed at the way I was acting. So every time I'd give this guy a high five, he would give me a high five, and so then I'd have to give this guy a high five because my hand was contaminated and I have to touch someone else. Otherwise, I pass out just like that.
Adam Mitchell wrote on helpmypatients.com, "Just try imagining how different life would be without OCD. I lost sight of that, but remembering it really helped me." I know that a lot of people with OCD have a big concern about AIDS, and so that must have been hard. I wonder if you've ever thought what your life would be like if you didn't have the OCD, if you've ever imagined how things would be different.
This really didn't have anything to do with OCD. I mean, the AIDS. Okay. The real reason that my OCD was set off was because of Bob, because he's a fat, disgusting, smelly pig. Anyway, so... Okay. After the meal, before we got back on the bus, everyone was sort of milling around, and a group of people, including Bob, came up to me, and, they said, "Gary, we're really impressed at how you dealt with that situation back there," because all of them, didn't want to have anything to do with the AIDS guy, and I guess I was, laughing along with him, giving him high fives and stuff, and, okay. I was glad to take the credit for that. If anything, it made me feel good about myself, which is something that rarely happens, and then Bob came up to me and he was like really contrite, and he apologized to me for his behavior towards the AIDS guy, and he went in for like a double high five. And I said, "No, I'm not going to give you a high five because the way you behaved is despicable. Everyone knows that you can only get AIDS from what is it, semen, blood, or breast milk. I mean, there's no fucking way you could contract AIDS from this guy by sharing a breadstick with him." Yeah. And I'm disgusted. And he walked away, and I didn't have to touch his hand.